Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of Worth the Hype, right? So I think quick acknowledgement that on the past two episodes that we created, the score is relatively high, and we received several feedback that saying that we're too nice and we're too favorable to the watches that we review. So just this is something to keep wary of as well as we're going into today's episode, right? As you can see from the title, which is Patek Philippe Cubitus, right? So we're going to dive right into it. Just a quick background as well is a watch that is newly introduced as a brand new collection after a long while from the Patek Philippe brand. Um, and this is a watch that is pretty much designed and worked on by the CEO of Patek Philippe. A quick history as well, that prior to this, Patek actually did own not own, I'm not sure own or they purchased the design from JLC. So actually the reversal actually was part under the Patek for a bit, but that did not come into fruition. And then they released back into JLC, right? So they mentioned that, oh, this is a little bit of history that they used to do rectangle watch and square watch and stuff, and so they want to go back to the roots and release the Cubitus. Right. So that's essentially the quick rough history of it. Anything you want to add in on that, Woody?
I think the Cubitus also has a very interesting marketing story around it. In fact, it was one which I think will eventually reveal itself as we talk through this as well, right? I think was clearly a case of where the CEO was very, very proud of it to the point of where some people call it almost arrogant and obnoxious, and that declared a lot of originality, which I beg to differ, but all things said and done, it's still a Patek. It's still a distant or close cousin of the Nautilus, which is one of the watches in the world that trades regularly above retail. So we'll see how we go with this.
Fair enough. Let's see if Mr. CEO is right or wrong, right?
Yes.
So diving straight into it, on the very first criteria, you guys would probably be familiar with it as well. Is it worth it at retail, right? Straight answer for me, no. And the sole reason for it is no, and why I give it an absolute zero as well is because if you could acquire given the option given to you between a Nautilus 5711 discontinued, of course, comparing to the steel equivalent, or a 5811 versus the new 40mm white gold Cubitus, probably a good 99% of you guys will probably go for the Cubitus. Therefore, I think it's an easy answer that says is no. And also, on top of it, the various amount of alternatives that you could get in the market for a square watch, it's abundant, right? Very easily, in terms of on everyone's head as well, the most popular square watch right now, which is the Santos. The Santos Dumont here, you have the Santos de Cartier, you have various amount of Santos in different sizes and color. For the ladies as well, there's the new Santos de Cartier, lady size in quartz. So your choice, you're spoiled for choices in a square watches, which arguably looks better as well and costs a tiny fraction of a price that you pay for a Cubitus, which is at about over 200,000 ringgit for a steel 45mm green dial Patek Cubitus, right? And not going into the one with the big complications, with the big date and so on. Those are mad expensive. So yeah, easy zero for me. Yeah.
Well, without going into too much detail, 40,000 US dollars in international money for what is a steel watch. Hint of precious metal in the movement, maybe a hint of it on the dial, but for $40,000, I can buy. I mean, if I don't really want a square watch, even if I could walk into a grey dealer right now, I'll be able to get a Submariner, a GMT Master, an Explorer, and with still change to spare, right? That's at retail. Now, you may argue that there's higher quality finishing and whatnot that comes with a Patek, right? But this is one of those watches which I think only history will prove itself right or wrong decades down the road. But in this current market, that's a quick and easy no for me. Just makes no sense, right? Some might even argue that, it's the same argument we might want to say as Rolex, where you buy it at retail and then you can flip it for profit. But, do I feel it's worth it at 40,000? Especially if there's a risk you can't move it? No, absolutely not. So that's an easy no for me. I don't think there's anything else for me to add in this regard, James. So it's back to you.
Right. Before we go into the next criteria, I want to just throw in a little debate right here, or more of like a debate, more of like a discovery, right? So many years back when Patek launched the Aquanaut, it got bashed on as well. It just looks like a stripped down version of a Nautilus with instead of a bracelet, it's now a rubber strap. A rubber strap that only does 30-meter water resistance, no hacking movement or whatsoever. However, the Aquanaut has since transformed into a watch that people now appreciate. Do you foresee the same equal treatment that will happen in the Cubitus 5-10 years down the road?
I think there is a possibility. That's the truth. But I also firmly stay in the camp that did not like the Aquanaut 5-10 years ago. I still don't like it today. I still find it ridiculous that people are paying that amount of money for a steel watch with a rubber strap, right? For all things intended, it's brilliant marketing, but no, it's not worth it for me still. So it's one of those things that I think history will prove me wrong eventually, but I can't see myself agreeing to this. And I think 5-10 years down the road, you're happy to bash me for it when the time comes.
Fair enough. I'm on a camp that I would personally give a little bit more credit to the Aquanaut, to be very honest. I would say they are both somewhat lazy in a way of piggybacking into the Nautilus, but I would say in terms of the laziness level, the Cubitus has out-trumped the Aquanaut. Essentially, if you could go into a Photoshop or PowerPoint, essentially getting a Nautilus and you're just dragging that aspect ratio into a square, that's it for a Cubitus, right? However, there is some effort looking at how well a rubber strap wears in the Aquanaut and how it looks. It's very similar, yet is a little bit different. Whereas the Cubitus, I can't see there's anything different aside from a square Nautilus, right? So both are bad, but one is worse than the other. That's how I see it. So I personally on the camp that I don't think it will eventually be hitting the same path to Aquanaut. But let's see. I may be wrong, you may be wrong, but we will know. Can't predict the future. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So moving on next. Is it worth it on the secondary market, right? So in this case, usually if it's not worth it on retail, in order for it to be worth it on the secondary market, it has to be lower than retail, where you can score a deal out of it. In these very instances, it is not the case. Due to artificial inflation, artificial scarcity, and so on, I don't know. But for whatever reason, the Cubitus is trading above retail right now at a really high price as well. Is anybody buying it or what? I don't know, but that is essentially the asking price. And therefore, for me, it is a easy zero as well. If you want something as if you're willing to pay the retail price for a Cubitus, you could easily score a vintage Nautilus, right? Maybe not a 5711, but on the older ones. I'm pretty sure you could score and maybe get something like a two-tone Nautilus. Pretty much a good deal for it. And it's something that is actually an original design from Gerald Genta versus a rip-off, right? In a sense. So yeah, it's an easy zero for me. Yeah.
I think from my end, I'm just looking at the numbers and I don't track these because I find them ridiculous to begin with. So I took a look just before we did this podcast. A $40,000 watch, asking price on the secondary market, 90,000 US dollars. That's absolutely ridiculous. Then when you go to the white gold version, it's retailing at close to 80,000 and its asking prices on the second-hand market are 170,000. Now, I don't know who it is out there that's transacting at those prices. It could just be wishful thinking by the dealers and whatnot. But seriously, if you are one of those buying it, good on you. You're printing money. You probably have a trust fund. You can do whatever you want with it. But to every one of us out there who has to work really hard for every single cent that we have, absolutely no. Get something else. Just don't buy it. Just don't buy it in the secondary market. Don't feed the beast, is what I'm saying to you, right? I'd rather you pick up something like what I'm wearing. It's like old Santos Curry or Santos Galve, a full integrated bracelet watch. Trading for, you can convert that and divide it by 10, and you can get a really good quality one, box and papers all included. For the price that you're paying for even the retail steel one, you could get a full gold version of this vintage iconic watch as well. And I've had the privilege recently of watching some videos of what a untouched version of a Santos looks like from the past, right? It's arguably up there, with the Genta sort of finishing as well. Of course, 30, 40 years down the road, it's taken its beating and all that, so it won't look as good anymore. But that's not where the money is at. So for me, easy 0.
Okay. Now on to the third criteria, aesthetic, right? So for aesthetic, for me, I would have to give it a 0.5. Right. So I had a long thought about this as well. I'm not sure whether to give it a 0 or 1, but ultimately I land in the middle. And let me explain the reason why I give it a 0.5, right? Essentially, if you have close inspection of the watch and you have seen it before, you would realize that essentially the watch is 95% a Nautilus, right? The bracelet is pretty much identical. The dial is very much similar as well. And it's just a square version of it. Right. So, and I have to give credit where credit is due. Ultimately, it's very much heavily derived from a iconic Gerald Genta design. Right. And it doesn't look that bad if you actually see it in person. Right. Let's take out the bad stigma that I have from Patek creating a big hype out of nothing. If they were to come clean and say, essentially we just want to create a square version of the Nautilus and call it Nautilus Square or Square Nautilus, I actually don't have too much issue of it, right? It's just the fact that irks me is that they are creating something bigger than it is, and it's essentially, like I said, a Square Nautilus, right? So I would give it a 0.5 for me. Yeah.
Well, we came up with this series not to necessarily always be diplomatic. So I'll put my bias in here, right? I think in the rank order of where I rank the 3 competitors, so we have the Royal Oak, the Nautilus, and also the Vacheron 222, right? Although the 222 was never a Genta design, but they're often put in the same camp. I'd rank the Royal Oak first, then the 222, then the Nautilus. That's my personal taste. So by virtue that Nautilus runs a 3 in that rank, there's no way that I can score anything for this because I put the Cubitus even further down the rank, right? So for me to pay that kind of money, I have to like how it looks. I just don't. I don't really like the Nautilus either. So easy 0 for me, but it's my own personal bias. Doesn't have to apply to you, but that's how I'd score it. Back to you, James.
Fair enough. All right, next is horology features. On this category, I had a very long thought as well, like what exactly I want to put, right? But ultimately, I still have to give it a 0. Right? The one reason is, yes, it's a Patek movement, and Patek is Patek, but I just can't stand the fact that it's essentially a slap-on an existing movement into a watch. It's not a square movement. There's nothing really there's nothing major innovation done to it as well. The only thing that I was like hesitant, or in a way that potentially would sway me to put it at 0.5, is on the platinum version, there's the big date. And I do like big dates. However, I have to say that particular variant is hideous. Right? It's the ugliest variant of all, just because of how, let's say, messy / imbalanced the dial look like as well. So ultimately, is that as much as I like a big date on a watch, I would rather not have any of it in that particular variant, right? So yeah, I can't give it anything more than a 0 for this. So yeah, over to you.
I'm with you on this because I'm a big fan of JLC, even though their prices have gone up a lot, right? But for every single JLC reversal watch that they've come up with, there's a new movement, and the movement fits the case, right? Especially at the prices that Patek's asking for. I cannot recognize that as innovation. I can't recognize that as a feature. Yes, they've refined the movement down to the size, and it's an easy business decision to plug whatever's in the Nautilus into a Cubitus. But even from a finishing standpoint, and this is probably a polarizing thought, the fact that they went from a Geneva hallmark to a Patek own hallmark also tells you that I'd rather stamp it myself. I can't let someone else verify the quality of finishing anymore for me. I think it's cost savings very clearly in play already. So for that sort of money, horological features for a design that the man himself loves and I don't know, in the Malaysian term, they call it syok sendiri, which means, like patting himself on the back, right? Yeah, take the watch. Go ahead. It's a 0 from me.
Yep. Another one is a circle jerk line. In a way. Yeah. All right. So down to the last bit, right? Wearability, right? So yes, I given a really, really bad score from all over the past 4 criteria. And this one, no doubt, I had a long thought as well, but I have to give it a full mark, right? I have to give credit where credit is due. So I have personally seen both variant as well, the 45 and the 40. 45 earlier in the Patek event in Malaysia. And I have to say, given the size and the dimension of it as well, the 45 wears incredibly well, being a 45 and a square watch, right? It actually kind of screwed with my mind a little bit because in a 45 and a square watch, you would figure it wears like a 50 or 52 and so on, but it wears really well. It's really thin as well. And especially with the 40 right now, it wears super, super, super well, right? So how I would determine this score is that, for example, if somebody were to give me this watch, for free, even though I can't sell it, will I wear it? I would say, yeah, I would. If somebody give me this at like 10% of the retail price and able to purchase it and wear it, I would. So the wearability for me is great, right? So yeah, I can't say anything more about that. Yeah, over to you.
Well, you have a point there. So first things first, watches that operate at this sort of price level tend to have great proportions. But what I'm thinking of is slightly different, right? At 45 millimeters, yes, it wears great for a 45 millimeter watch, but it's still square watches at 45 tend to wear bigger than round watches at 45 as well. The Cubitus is unique in the sense that when you look at its design, although it's square, it actually curves out a little bit. So it actually behaves a little bit more like a round watch as well. So it does wear well as a 45 millimeter watch. I'm sure the 40 millimeter wears even better. But what I cannot get out of my system, and that's where the bias kicks in, you started first with the 45 and now you have the 40, but the 40 only comes in white gold at the moment at the cheapest entry point. And that's where you're talking about the 90,000 US dollars, right? Yes, wearability is something I have to give some points in. I really wanted to let my bias kick in and give it a whole 0, but fine. Take your 0.5 and go. Because I would say the 40 millimeter version would wear really, really well. On the balance of it, the 45 would as well. But I think if you gave me the 45 in the way that you described it, James, I wouldn't wear the 45. You give me the 40, I'll wear the 40. I won't wear the 45. So for me, somewhere in between. It's not a 1, not a 0, a 0.5 for me. But that's my sympathy point for the Patek Cubitus. Back to you, James.
Fair enough. I think that pretty much wraps it out. And this is going to be an incredibly low score. So for those out there who say that we can't give low scores, that we absolutely can, right? We are only the third episode away, so stay tuned, right? There will be many, many different kind of watches that some will yield high, some will yield low, and so on. And eventually this yields a 1.5 for me and a 0.5 for Woody, which an overall score of 2 out of 10. Right, so if you remember in episode 1 where we shows the table, I think from 0 to 4.5 is like buy if the price right. This is very low in that spectrum. So yeah, if I would guess buy it if you want. But we really do not recommend this, like not at all, right? We can say that, yeah.
Yeah, so
I mean,
for
like,
me,
if
it's
you
very
could get
simple.
it, yeah.
For me, it's very
Yeah.
simple. It's like, I think it was the CEO that said, right? If you don't get it, it's not for you, right? Yeah, so I don't get it. It's not for me. He's absolutely right. I'm not the target market. So if you are the target market, you do you. That's basically what I'll tell you, right? Even if I was made of money, this is a watch I will skip. I won't even bother spending that money, even if I've crypto bro or something like that. Right? I'll look at other stuff. I think I'd rather like burn money into a GLC gyro tourbillon, where I will never make the money back, so to speak, than pay stupid money for this sort of thing. So anyway, that's just me.
Fair enough. But yeah, let's see. This episode will be on YouTube. So in 5, 10 years, if this is end up taking off and yielding 3, 4 times the retail price, feel free to bring this up, screen cap it, and tag us in it, and we'll happily be proven wrong, right? But that's what it is. Essentially, we stand by our opinion, and stand by our choice, and then you do what we want with it in our scoring. Right? Ultimately, like you mentioned, this is a subjective scoring, and we hope you enjoy this episode as much as we do. And we'll see you in the next one then. Thank you everyone for watching.
Bye.
Right.